Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today what I'm going to do is start off with a papier-mâché pumpkin I did pick up at Hobby Lobby. I am going to go ahead and give it 2 coats of the pumpkin color. And I did decide to paint the top. This one was actually a very light brown, and I actually went in here in a little bit and touched up with some dark chestnut color. Now, after I let this dry, I actually came in with an X-Acto knife, and what I wanted to do was draw on a jack-o'-lantern face. It doesn't have to be perfect. I actually liked it when it was imperfect, so I do think it does look better. Right here, I did use my knife to cut out the jack-o'-lantern face. It really wasn't that difficult. You did have to use a little bit of force, so I do want to stress to exercise caution here. I don't want you to use a little bit too much force and then end up cutting yourself, so be very careful here. And since I want the jack-o'-lantern to have a light, I did decide to just cut out a little bit of a square, just kind of like to fold it over as a door, essentially like that. Here is my pumpkin. It's starting to look like a jack-o'-lantern. Now I am going to hang these from my dining room ceiling, kind of like the Harry Potter movies. So I do have to poke a hole through the stem. I used scissors. It kind of worked out pretty good. I mean, the hole was pretty large. I'm sure if you had like a long needle, you could use that too, but I didn't have one of those, so I just used what I got. Now this here is some fishing string. I did end up having like a 50-pound fishing string. You don't have to have that. That's what I have on hand, and I kind of wanted it to be strong. I did not want these to fall. Done with my jack-o'-lantern, I did actually need some candles to also hang, so I did pick these up, I think off of Temu a long time ago. These are battery operated. It does have a remote. That's how, like, I suggest you do that. You don't want to climb on a chair and turn these on every day. So I did have some other fishing string. This one is actually less strong. I didn't want it as thick, and I kind of wanted it to be see-through. And this is how it turned out. I just used some thumbtacks and just stuck it up to my ceiling. I absolutely love how these turned out, and I am going to get some witches hats to hang up as well. For this one, I know everybody has seen the Michael's a ghost painting. What I'm going to do is try to replicate that just a little bit, but kind of different at the same time. So I did pick up this black poster board at the Dollar Tree, and I decided to cut it in half. I am going to roll it up into a cone. I am using hot glue for this. Just be very careful so you don't burn yourself. When I got done with the cone, I am just going to cut the bottom. I am going to try to make it as even as possible so that way it doesn't wobble or is lopsided. Now, I actually had this drywall mud left over from a DIY project a long time ago. I did try to mix it pretty good, but I will say that I do think it's just a little bit thin. But you can definitely pick some up at Home Depot or Lowe's or even at the Dollar Tree. And then here I'm just taking a spoon and I'm going to try to replicate a flying ghost. This does not have to be perfect. They can go whatever direction, up, down, side to side. It makes it look better. I did let that dry overnight just to make sure everything was dry and secure. Now it is time to draw on the little eyes, and basically I just use some black paint. I do have a very small thin brush, and I'm just going around and making two little dots. Felt like these cones needed something on top, so I decided to make a bow. I'm not very good at it. I actually picked up both of these ribbons at the Dollar Tree. They're both pretty thin and see-through, so I think that it worked perfectly. So after I glued on the bow to the top, I decided that it still was missing something. So I did pick up some of this felt from the Dollar Tree, and you can't really see it here, but what I'm doing is trying to draw out a ghost. So again, you can't really see it, but try your best, okay? And I just used hot glue to glue this to the bow. Now it is time to draw the eyes. Same paintbrush, the same paint, and this is how it turned out. So I decided to make a larger one. This one is a little bit different. This is going to be more in line with the Michael's ghost canvas. What I'm doing is kind of overlapping the ghosts essentially. What I don't want them to be like straight down. So as soon as I make my first row, I go in, and in between the two ghosts, I place another ghost at the bottom. I don't want this to be perfect. I actually like it better when it's imperfect. I do think it just looks a whole lot better. But then also I try to keep a little bit of the mud essentially kind of like in an oval, and not like a perfect circle either. And I did let this sit overnight as well. Now it is time to draw the eyes. Same paint, the same thin brush, and I'm just going all the way around and making little black dots, different sizes as well. I absolutely had an amazing time making this. I do think that this is unique and different, and I don't see these in stores, so I loved making this. I absolutely love how they turned out. Please let me know what you all think. I wanted to make a wreath for my daughter's bedroom door, and I kind of wanted it to match like the ghost theme. So I did take the twine from the Dollar Tree and then a wired form. And basically all I do is I tie a knot. I use a little bit of hot glue in order to secure it, and I just go all the way around the wreath form. Pretty tight. I don't want any kind of loose string, so I will go ahead and tell you that it does take a little bit of time, but it was so worth it at the end. And every so often, I would just come in and put a little bit of hot glue here just to make sure that it is secure. I did actually use probably about 1.25 for this project. I did pick these up at the Dollar Tree, and basically all I did here is kind of just tie it to the end. I did use a little bit of hot glue just to make sure that it is secure, and then I just continued. And then when you get towards the end, if you notice, one end is, has a shorter distance than the top. You do have to overlap that, but it still came out really good. And right here, I did decide to kind of overlap the piece of string, and then I actually tied it, and then I did use some hot glue for that. And then you can actually leave it that color. I actually liked that color, but I do think that it would look better black. If you can actually find some black yarn or black twine, that would probably be a lot easier, but you also have this option. So once that was dry, I did pick up these fake flowers or roses at the Dollar Tree, and I did pick up 3 different colors. Basically what I'm going to do here, I do want to kind of like fluff the flowers out, but I am just using some hot glue, and I'm kind of just placing it different colors, somewhat kind of next to each other. I don't want to overlap the colors, so I did decide to put them in 3s and just change out the colors. So I did end up using 1 pack of the roses in each color, and what I am thinking about is just trying to fill up just half of the wreath with those roses. And I did pick up these little pearls at the Dollar Tree, and I kind of want something in the middle, so I did decide to use hot glue, and I did place those pearls inside the middle of the roses. I will tell you that the pearls were kind of small, so be very careful when using the hot glue. So I actually did have some leftover felt, so what I'm going to do is just kind of trace out little ghosties. You've probably seen this in a previous project. Basically I'm just going to cut those out, and I probably did about 4 or 5 of those, because the other part of the wreath that's kind of empty, I'm just going to put those there. And what I did is I kind of just laid the ghosts out whichever way I wanted it. I did kind of space those out a little bit. So here I just decided to use a little bit of hot glue. I will tell you that it doesn't actually need a whole lot just to make it secure. I did have a black permanent marker, and what I'm doing here is just drawing on a little bit of eyes for the ghost. I will tell you, when using that, you probably do have to go over it a couple times. You can also use black paint as well. That would probably work. Now I did have some leftover pearls, and what I'm doing here is just kind of placing that on my wreath. I didn't have very many, so I'm just going to use probably about 5 or 6 and then just spacing them out a little bit. And I absolutely loved how this project came out. This is very unique, very different, and it looks beautiful on my front door. So this is my last DIY for this video. I just started with some black candle holders. I do want to paint those white. It does not have to be perfect. You can actually spray paint those if that's easier. I'm just using some Waverly chalk paint for this. Again, I only did one coat because it doesn't have to be perfect. And what I'm using here is basically just a satin or silk pillowcase from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just trying to iron out the wrinkles for this project. I ended up picking up these foam balls at Walmart. I had this for a very long time. I did hot glue that to the candle stand. So now what I'm doing is I actually am using that pillowcase. I cut it in half so that way it's longer. And I'm just placing that over the foam ball. I'm kind of just measuring with my eyes. And I will say too, it is a lot easier if we just place a little bit of hot glue at the top of the foam ball. I say that because it is silk and it does tend to move a lot. So definitely do that just to help you, especially with that measurement. So now, I picked up this lace at the thrift store. Those are actually really, really cheap, and I think they are actually beautiful. So right now, I am just placing that over the silk pillowcase, and I will be doing the same thing, essentially just measuring it. My advice, again, is to just place a little bit of hot glue at the top so that way it just doesn't move around, and then just cut around to the length that you desire. I did not have black felt, so I had to use the gray felt, and I'm just tracing out some eyes, cutting those out. I will be basically painting those black, a little bit of a darker color, and all I'm doing here is just trimming that up, and then all I do is basically just hot glue that to the lace. And again, just using hot glue for that, just to make the eyes. And it turned out to be just a beautiful ghosty theme. This is how it turned out. Let me know what you all think.